Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sammie for those of you who don't know, and if you are new here, well, welcome like I said, and for those of you who aren't new here, welcome back. So anyway, you've read the title, so you already know what's going to go on. If you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe. All my social media links are down below so you can keep up to date with whatever it is that I'm doing. I also probably should say that yes, you might recognize this outfit from a previous video from a couple weeks ago. The reason for that is I'm actually filming it like 2 weeks ahead of time, which I typically don't really do. I typically film like a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead of time, I guess. I don't know, it's weird. I'm actually going to be on vacation, so if you want to keep up to date on my Instagram or Snapchat story, go ahead and add me on those and you will see what I'm going to be up to, and eventually there will be a vlog. Promise. I have hiccups. No! No! I don't know how this video is gonna go. Probably like that. Probably like that. Oh man. Whew. So you've already read the title, so you already know what we're gonna be talking about. I myself am what's known as a CODA, although technically not really, because I'm over the age of 18 now. But so a CODA is a child of a deaf adult, often known by the acronym CODA. Often known by the acronym CODA is a person who was raised by one or more deaf parents or guardians. The acronym CODA, kid of deaf adult, is sometimes used to refer to CODAs under the age of 18. So there can be a couple types of CODAs depending on whether you say kid or child. I will forever be a CODA. I will always have had deaf parents or parent, depending on the situation for someone. I technically had 3 deaf parents. I have my mom, my dad, and my stepmom. So when you are a CODA, I'm not gonna lie, it's known as what's called the deaf community, and most anyone in the deaf community typically everyone in the deaf community typically knows each other, and so it's very, I wouldn't say that it's a small circle, but at the same time I would definitely point out that a lot of people do know each other. I probably should put in a disclaimer that I'm not speaking for anyone who is deaf or hard of hearing or whatever your situation may be. I'm just speaking on my own personal experience for what my life is like, what I have seen other lives like. So I just wanted to go ahead, put that disclaimer in. So part of the reason why I did say that disclaimer is because I was gonna say, typically most of the time when I do see deaf people out in public, especially when out of habit, I will go ahead and sign to them, not even realizing that they probably didn't even realize that I could sign. When I do go out in public and I see deaf people, most of the time I do sign, because I just feel like that it's out of respect and of course sincerity. And I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially who are deaf or hard of hearing, that don't come across someone who, you know, signs. It is particularly rare. Most of the time when I do come across someone who is deaf, I'm always asked what my okay, I'm gonna go get water. I can't do this anymore. I just wanted to film. Hopefully that worked. I think it did. Okay. Back to what I was saying. So typically when I am out in public, like I was saying, is I am most of the time always asked my name or how I know sign language, etc., because from what I've seen, a lot of deaf people who encounter someone who signs, it's particularly rare, which I understand. I've seen so many people who just I've seen so many people in the deaf community who are just like in shock or awe, especially when someone signs. And I don't want to like toot my own horn, but when someone signs pretty fluently, because when someone signs pretty fluently, a lot of the questions that I'm asked is if I'm deaf, what my name is, and like where I live around. And for me particularly, if someone who wasn't in the deaf community asked me that, I wouldn't feel inclined to give my name. A lot of the times when I am out in public and someone does ask me my name or where I'm from, I still am not particularly comfortable with it, but it is just how someone in the deaf community might respond to it. And I'm not gonna say that it's entirely a bad thing. It's just sometimes, like, I guess an example, I was at work and he asked me where I lived and, you know, this and that, and I just wasn't particularly comfortable. So I just basically said that, you know, I lived around here because it was where I was working, obviously. So I just kind of, you know, and my name was on my name tag, so I told him my name, etc. I do get to a point sometimes where they do ask a little bit more questions than I am particularly comfortable with, and most of the time I just kind of don't answer because it's privacy reasons. And I don't know, I've just noticed that a lot of people in the deaf community are very upfront. It's not everyone, I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot of people who just don't care, like they just won't ask at all. But sometimes they do want to ask, oh, where did you learn sign language, or how do you know sign language, or different things like that, because it kind of piques their interest, because they would like to know. They really would. They want to know where someone learned to speak their own language, or I guess, okay, speak their own language is figure of speech, but just basically know their language. Another thing about being a CODA is it gives you a lot of insight to the deaf world and deaf community, from what you probably could already tell. I'm pretty sure I just spit. Love that. It does give me a lot of insight to the deaf community, and I can basically pick up a lot of habits. I've learned a lot of new things, and it's just really nice to kind of be a part of a community that I probably wouldn't necessarily be a part of if it wasn't for my parents. I would like to say though, it is particularly weird to know a lot of things that a lot of other people don't, because sometimes I have to explain. I do remember growing up having to explain in elementary school. It's not as common as it was in high school, but in elementary school mainly, I had to explain what the word deaf meant, because when my mom would come in during class, a lot of people would be like, what? And I'd be like, oh, my mom's deaf, you know, I'm signing or whatever, and basically have to explain because, you know, a lot of people have never seen it before. I honestly am actually really surprised at the amount of people who have never run into someone who is deaf. There's a lot of people who are deaf in the deaf community, and deaf in the deaf community. Wow, I'm stupid. And just there's actually quite a few people, and it just kind of surprises me that no one runs into them more often, if that makes any sense. I don't even know. So I guess to backtrack a little bit, growing up, like I said, with elementary school and everything, growing up was honestly really good, and I'm really glad that I did grow up the way that I did, because I was immersed in deaf culture. I was immersed in the deaf community, and it was super nice, and it was good to be a part of, because I really felt included, and I really felt just like I belonged somewhere. So when I was in the deaf community, I of course grew up with a whole bunch of other CODAs, as well as kids who were born deaf. So I grew up with a lot of people that I could really relate to, a lot of the people who we just basically had our own clique, and it was just so, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really do miss a lot of the CODAs that I grew up with. I do miss a lot of the people that I was with as a kid, and to be frank, it was just, you belonged somewhere, and it felt right. It really did. And as a CODA, like our families, all the families of and all the CODAs, we would all do stuff together. Every single year we would go camping at a specific place. Every single like Sunday after church, when I went to church, would go to our favorite restaurant and we would all just hang out. Once a month we would have these events that it was just all the families would just, we had what were called FFFs, but in our case it was DFFFs. It was Deaf Family Fun Festival, and it was just every single month. It would basically just be like tailgating or like a big potluck, and we would just bring a whole bunch of food together and just hang out like once a month. I remember the kids would collect all the chairs and we would build forts and stuff, and we would just like watch movies and hang out and just eat a whole bunch of food for like hours at a time. And it was honestly a really good part of my life, and I really am thankful now that I'm really thinking about it, because I haven't actually really sat down and talked about this specific topic with people who weren't in the deaf community, because no one really, like, I don't know, I've never really talked about this topic before, so it's actually kind of cool to see like how thankful I am and how much I remember. Anyway, so moving on. So I guess some examples that I can probably say about growing up is like, I don't know if I did this, but I know my brother did this, is when he was little, when he first started preschool, he used to bang on the table to get the teacher's attention. And I find it really funny because when my mom was explaining the story to me, my brother used to just bang on the table for the longest time until finally the parent-teacher conferences that were scheduled, my parents came in for the parent-teacher conference, and the teacher finally figured out that they were deaf, and they were like, is this why your child bangs on the table? And they were like, oh, we're so sorry, we didn't even realize he did that, we'll talk to him. Because you have to think about it, when you haven't really been you have to think about it like as a kid, when you haven't really been exposed to a lot of people in, you know, in that type of setting or that environment, your first instinct is to do what you've always done. So for me, my brother, I'm sure I probably did it, but I remember my mom specifically talking about my brother because he's older, so I'm sure that I was told not to bang the tables at school. That's just your first instinct of what to do, is to try to get someone's attention, is to bang on the tables, at least for my brother, so I thought that was pretty funny. Another thing that I do find pretty funny is I remember specifically and vividly that when we would run out of toilet paper, I had to bang on the wall to try to get my mom's attention so she could bring me more. Yeah. Another thing that I used to do a lot with my dad is I used to just like have hair ties or hair bands or even rubber bands sometimes. If I didn't have a hair tie, just don't ever use a rubber band for your hair. But I used to always like have hair ties or hair bands or whatever, and I used to always fling them at my dad. Specifically, don't use rubber bands for that because those actually kind of hurt. Hair bands, not so much, because they're more elastic and they're more fabric, and so they don't hurt. I used to just fling hair bands and stuff just across the room to get my dad's attention if he was like reading a book. Or I remember specifically in my dad's house, there was like a catwalk at the top. I don't even know what it's called, but the second floor there's a catwalk because my room was just outside, and he would always sit down on his chair specifically, and it was just a straight shot from the balcony down to his chair. So I would just fling a hair tie to get his attention. It would scare the crap out of him sometimes, don't get me wrong, but after a while sometimes he just kind of expected it, because I kept doing it on and off, and it would just get his attention, and it was just easier because obviously I can't shout across the room. I can't be like, hey mom, hey dad. I can't ever call them on the phone. It's just kind of a lot of like learning, which it's more learning for other people. For me, it's always been my norm. Like a good example, I guess, for my normal that I actually just thought of and remembered was I had a friend who was gonna come over for Halloween. We were going to just binge eat candy because I live in the middle of nowhere, so I don't really have neighbors. So I don't really celebrate Halloween. not necessarily celebrate Halloween. I just don't really trick-or-treat or have trick-or-treaters. So she came over and I totally forgot to tell her that my mom was deaf until she showed up at the house when I was introducing her to my mom. Basically, she didn't find out my mom was deaf until I started signing, and she looked at me and goes, "What?" It's just kind of, it's normal for me. Like, it's my norm. Like, it's what I grew up with. It's what I know. It's the things that I know how to do. And so, I don't know, there's just so many things that a lot of people just, like, I don't know. There's just, like, a lot of things that a lot of people don't really know about that I just, it's my normal. But then again, I would never ever know what it's like if, I don't know, I was forced to play my music quietly, because I don't have to play my music that quiet. I blast my music whenever I want, or, I mean, not so much anymore because there's my stepdad's hearing. But, I don't know, it's just, it's my normal, and I'm okay with it. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do have to do for my mom, but there's a lot of things that do help her out. Like, we have dogs, which are pretty helpful for her, because she sees them barking. Obviously she can't hear them barking, but she sees that they're barking, like she sees that they're doing whatever, and she's like, "What's going on? Is someone at the door? Oven beeping?" Something like that. Doorbell. Like, it's a lot of things that my dogs are very helpful to my mom if they hear like a dinging. We do, or we used to, not so much anymore because we don't really need to, is we used to have like flashing lights for the doorbell, or we used to have flashing lights for like timers and things like that. My mom uses the flash on her phone whenever she needs like a reminder or her alarm, or whenever she gets a text message. And I've noticed that she typically puts her phone upside down all the time, so then the flash will go off when she needs to see it. And I'm just thinking, oh, like, there's so many habits that she does that I just like didn't even think about, because I always put my phone face up because I like to look at text messages, but she can't really do that because if it's face up, then she can't see the flash, and it's this whole thing. But I don't know, it's just like a whole bunch of normal things for me that aren't really normal for other people, so I feel like it is really good to share and let other people know what's up. I will say though, like I said, with like some of the benefits, I can remember also having to, I don't know, I remember specifically a lot in high school. My mom would be at the high school one time, and I don't know, people try to get her attention. I tweeted the other day, actually, I'll see if I can find it and put it up, but it basically was like, my favorite pastime about the holidays is when my mom unknowingly ignores people and then seeing how butthurt they get. It's the most hilarious thing to me is when people try to get her attention and she just full on ignores them. But obviously she doesn't know that she is. She can't hear what they're saying if they're behind her, to the side of her, or even sometimes if they're playing in front of her and she's looking down, nothing. She'll just nothing. It's just funny to me. I remember specifically out of habit when I was at the high school, I stomped on the floor out of habit to get her attention, and I didn't even mean to, but I got yelled at by someone in the office, and they basically were like, stop, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, sorry, I'm trying to get my mom's attention, because she started walking away after dropping me off on a morning or something. I don't even remember, but I was trying to get her attention, and I got my butt reamed by the lady in the attendance office. I remember this, and she was like not having it, and I was like, I'm sorry, I was trying to get my mom's attention, and she was like, oh. I mean, she like got really mad, but then she kind of like ate her own words a little bit and then was like, oh, sorry, my bad. But at the same time, like, don't stop your feet in high school, like, that's not fun. I will tell you though, in high school, I was allowed to have my phone most of the time because of my mom, because obviously my mom cannot call on the phone. She has to text. And even then, a lot of the teachers would get kind of antsy with me and be like, why do you need to have your phone? And I'd be like, I have my phone because my mom is deaf and it's just easier for her to have to text me, or even better yet, FaceTime me when she needs to, because most of the time I would actually FaceTime my mom in class, and a lot of people would be like, why are you FaceTiming? And I'd be like, I'm FaceTiming my mom. And a lot of people would be like, why are you FaceTiming your mom? And I would just call her, and I'd be like, I don't want to explain, okay? It's my mother, leave me alone, you know? And so sometimes it was really nice to just like be able to have my phone, because my mom, ooh, she does not care what other people think of her, and I so admire her for that, because a lot of the times she would basically just like tell a lot of my teachers off if I wasn't allowed to have my phone in class, and I'd be like, okay. But even then, most of the time I would just, you know, play games or go on Snapchat or Twitter, or things I wasn't supposed to. But even then, like, I was a pretty good student, in my opinion. I graduated, duh, but but I think I don't know, it's just like my normal, like I don't know, there's a lot of things that I can't like not explain that are just like my normal, and it is what my life is, and it's great, and I wouldn't change it for the world in all honesty. And I think it would probably be really weird if I ever had to be like, hey mom, or call my mom on the phone. Anyway, I don't know how long this video is gonna be. I've already filmed like 30 minutes of footage, I think. I don't know. But yeah, so I hope you guys are having a great week, or had a great week, or whatever it is going on. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here, I seriously appreciate it. And let me know down in the comments what else you guys want to see. I have actually quite a few ideas of what I want to do, and eventually probably introduce my mom to my channel and do some really funny things, because I already have a few ideas and I feel like she'll hate all of them, so it'll be great, it'll be fun. So yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I seriously appreciate it. All my social links are down below, and just go ahead and leave me a comment of whatever you want. I don't know, your favorite type of sandwich. Mine's ham and cheese. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.